Have you heard of Alex Hormozi? Well, if you're in the coaching and marketing space and even the hypnosis space like myself, chances are you've heard of him, especially if you're doing your promotion of your business on social media. And recently, he had an interview with Tony Robbins. Now, I'm just going to preface this by saying I'm not here to pick any of this apart, but in total, over the last 3 to 4 years, I've probably watched 45 minutes of Alex Hormozi. That's right. In several years, I've only watched 45 minutes of Alex Hormozi. But I'm going to tell you the subconscious patterns that he is running. And I'm going to share with you the clues that tipped me off because so many people are running these patterns and they don't even realize it. If you don't know me, my name's Penny. I'm a board certified hypnotist. I spent 25 years in healthcare as an ICU nurse and as a nurse anesthetist before leaving to run my global hypnosis and training practice full time. So let's take a look at some statistics. And I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head because it's been a while since I looked at them, but you can go research and you can see for yourself the majority of entrepreneurs. Well, let's go here. The majority of millionaires are self-made. It's over 60%. I want to say it was something like 68% are self-made. They didn't have mama's money. They didn't have daddy's money. There was no legacy investors or anything like that. They're purely self-made. There's another body of research that's survey-based that shows that the majority of entrepreneurs have some sort of mental or emotional or financial hardship growing up, or they have trauma. All of this is very important with what I'm about to share with you, because we're going to bring in a little bit of spiritual, not woo-woo new agey, but a little bit of spiritual concept into this that is going to make so many light bulbs go off in your brain, you're not going to be able to stand yourself. So there's something that's true about the brain, neurobiologically, neuropsychologically, however you want to word it. And I phrase it that way because the mind is not in the brain. Science is showing that they cannot locate where the mind resides and how we have a field around us and that we can actually pick up on thoughts that aren't ours. I mean, you've heard of telepathy, but we can tune in. We can pick up on the frequency and the vibration of other people's thoughts. You've had this happen where you've been in a conversation with someone and you've really been in sync and you knew what they were going to say. You finished their sentences for them. That's no accident. It's the way that we're tuned as human beings. But the brain, its primary motivator is to move away from pain. Its primary motivator is to move away from pain rather than move towards something that we desire. We could want a Lamborghini, for example. When I was a teenager, I always wanted a Lamborghini. I wasn't your typical teenage girl with pinups of Ralph Macchio on my wall. I had Lamborghinis pasted to my wall because I always wanted to drive a fast car and a sexy car. But wanting it and desiring that is not enough. It takes effort. You get to build things, you get to do work, you get to be creative to acquire the wealth, the finances to afford that Lamborghini. To just want it is not enough to move towards that. So when I was a nurse back in the late 90s, the hospital system was undergoing cuts and all of these things, and they were wanting to offer nurses like a one-time bonus to put up with a very stressful situation we were dealing with at the hospital, very low staffing. And it was said at that time that yes, that bonus could be a motivator, but it's a short-term motivator. Money is not a maintainer. It can be a motivator. It is not a maintainer. So when you want to acquire wealth, what is going to maintain your ambition and your drive to move towards wealth. Well, unless you're just a highly disciplined individual and you're okay with dealing with the challenges of business, that maintainer is going to be the underlying drive to move away from pain or to avoid perceived pain if you don't move forward. So we move away from pain, and then the fear of re-experiencing that pain is also a maintainer. Alex Hormozi, multi-nine-figure business. He's shooting for $1 billion. They might be close to it already. I really don't know them. I don't know him and Layla, never met them. I watched a video of his 2 or 3 years ago, and within 2 minutes, I knew he had built his business on fear. His entire business is built on fear. That's where the hustle and the grind comes from. Yes, we get to work hard, but I remember the look in his eyes. He was being interviewed, or he was on stage at some conference or convention, and he had been asked a question. In that particular video, there just was not any light in his eyes. You could tell he was burnt out. And he said, fear is just there. You have to learn to live with fear. It can't go away. And that is absolutely patently false. We can have fearful thoughts, but we don't have to live in fear. And so in that moment, I knew, I'm like, okay, he's not done a lot of self-development work, and that's not bad or good. We are all on our own path. This is zero criticism. I'm highlighting for you so you can see in yourself if any of these patterns exist. That's how come he is accomplished. Once he found his winning recipe, his winning combination, that's why he's been able to grow so far so fast, is because he's been moving away from fear. He has been moving away from pain. And, you have to ask yourself, how does the brain know when enough is enough? And so it's just continued to grow and grow and grow. Now, Alex is a very heart-centered person in terms of service. He wants to see other people succeed. So when it comes to wealth and spirituality, there's a parasitic class. And then there's a heart-centered class. There's people that are here to actually improve and elevate humanity. Think Gary Vaynerchuk. He's very outspoken on love yourself. Don't care what other people think. If somebody tells you your idea is stupid, plug your kids' ears, tell them go fuck yourself. Okay? Which is how I feel. I just don't verbalize it that way. I don't tell people my dreams. It's none of their business. It's none of their business. I don't want that counter intention, that counter energy. But that was the first clue. And I was like, oh, he's built his business based off fear. And so a lot of times what you see is his protective shell that's up there. Well, fast forward to recent months ago, he had Tony Robbins, and they did a video interview. And I just saw one chunk of it. And I wish I had been in the room. And I'm not saying I could have fixed anything in 5 minutes, but if it had been a client situation and not an interview situation, I'm going to tell you exactly what I would have done. But Tony was asking him some questions and was basically laying out the idea of being able to do things from a place of ease. And I don't mean easy. I don't mean no effort, no work, but to be from a place of ease, to just be able to give from your heart and to create things and to not have this sense of urgency and push. And again, my words, my spin on what Tony was saying. And, he was talking about being the being. And Alex said, well, I've heard that before and that all sounds nice, but I really don't know what that means. And we all start at that place. I mean, at some point in our lives, we all started at that place where we didn't know what that meant. And so Tony encourages him to get into it and talk a little bit more about it. And Alex mentions that there was a moment where he just said, plug your kids' ears again, fuck happiness. I watched his entire energy because he was relaxed and he was like, oh, well, that sounds nice. That sounds like it would be nice, but I really don't know what that means. And then as he starts to talk, the subconscious mind comes through. And here's how I know it was the subconscious mind coming through and it wasn't a flip comment. His entire body's expression, his nervous system, you can see his whole body. If my understanding is they made the video unlisted, but if you have the link, you can still go see the video. If you have the link, go watch it. That's all a marketing thing, by the way. You can see the muscle tension in his whole body change. When he says that, F happiness, he just reaches points at F happiness because he believed he had to sacrifice happiness to be safe. That's what was happening subconsciously. If that were a client session and he said that to me, I would not let him leave that moment. If he wanted to start to continue to expand on what he was saying, I'd go, no, 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 F happiness. And if the mind tried to veer away again, I go, no, no, F happy. I would force the subconscious mind to focus on that until it would reveal to me not the story around it, but what was actually underneath it. That's the way conversational hypnosis can work. You have to know what to do with it beyond that point. But I've heard recently, and again, it's all hearsay, and this is a very positive thing. When you talk about someone else, if you point one finger at other people, three fingers are pointed back. So I'm sharing this with all the purest and positive of intention and love of heart and compassion for Alex and everyone involved. But apparently, people who are close to him are saying he's kind of shifting his gears a little bit. And here's what it is: money and metrics only get you so far. That's not where purpose and fulfillment comes from. And several years ago, I wrote a paper where I talked about how chasing philanthropy and chasing service will not fill the hole inside of us. If there's something that has been pushing us to be high achieving and to just keep going after goal after goal after goal, if we don't address what's underneath that, no amount of charitable giving and no amount of service, as good as that makes us feel, is going to satisfy the subconscious driver that will not let us pause, rest, and enjoy what we've created. Yes, service, giving, charitable giving, all of those things raise our vibration. If you want to borrow a spiritual term, they raise our vibration. But that by itself will not short circuit the protective mechanism underneath the surface that still believes it has to run from pain. You have to do both. If you watch the video where I mentioned Patrick Swayze recently, I talk about it with him too, except he was wanting to atone. That's why he was achieving goals. Some people create their business because they feel like they need to atone for something that they did wrong. They have to build all this stuff and they have to give all this money away and they have to do all this to compensate for something else. There was a CEO on LinkedIn that wrote an article and he made the comment that without anxiety, you don't have an edge in business. You can't be successful without that anxiety or that fear. And again, that's not true. What people are feeling is they're feeling the adrenaline that is pumping through their system when they're in a state of anxiety, when they're in a state of worry, when they're in a state of problem solving, or when the other shoe is going to drop. They don't trust themselves to continue to be successful if that's gone, because a lot of these people are very well studied and they've read the books and they know that the brain would rather move away from pain than towards comfort, joy, desire. So what is the shift that you have to make? Let's just hypothetically speak for just a moment. Alex wants to build $1 billion business, and I have no doubt whatsoever he's going to get there because he gives a lot. There's a lot of and reciprocity in what he does. But he wants to hit $1 billion or more. If the pain of whatever it is that triggered him to say happiness and pushes him towards his goal, if that is gone, what is going to drive him to that $1 billion? I'll tell you what will drive him. Once he's met those needs on that Maslow's hierarchy, financial, connection. I mean, he's in self-actualization. He is recognizing his full potential on a 3D level. When he moves into that self-transcendence and the mission truly becomes service to humanity, once he taps into that in absence of the fear, then what will drive him is not wanting to live with regret that he didn't do absolutely the most that he could. And you can do absolutely the most that you can without burnout. It is amazing that when you're being in service to humanity, how you get fueled by that in a healthy way. You are energized as opposed to adrenalized. He has built his business off of adrenaline. Now he's stepping into this phase. I feel it. I sense it. There were a couple of things that I heard, and I'm like, oh, he's having his awakening, a next level of awakening, and he is going to crack into this self-transcendence. This is his next phase, and his purpose is just going to be lifting everyone up. He has the teams, he has the systems, he's got Layla for operations, they've got acquisition.com, they have all of these things. The systems are in place. Yes, he has to know what's going on in the businesses, and he is the brand, but he can shift his focus and his energy, and through that position of service, very much in the way that Gary Vee does, what he's creating is going to explode. It's already, I feel like it's already unstoppable, because his intent through what he is creating, his intent is positive. Even though the goal has been to make money to avoid the pain, he's done it with the right intent behind it. So I don't know if you saw yourself in any of this, but if you did, then good for you. Now you know there's a starting place where you can begin to do some work. Oh, there was one more thing I was going to add. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are spiritual in nature, myself included. And when you're creating a successful business, sometimes people will sit back and think, well, I've been doing all this work on healing. And here's someone like Alex Hormozi. He hasn't, there's not any overt, okay, because I don't know his personal details. There's no overt evidence that he's done any of this healing work. And how does he have this wild success? Well, when we move into doing this healing work for ourselves, we're doing the healing alongside of the building of the business, and a lot of the things that are very painful that drive people to success fast, we've already started working through those things. So we're building our business from the beginning based around wanting to have that impact in a way that, I don't want to use the word meaningful or matters, that detracts from what he's created. That's not what I want to say. We're just building it from a different perspective, and we don't have all of that fear that is the gasoline on the fire to build the business. And we have to learn how to ignite the, I don't want to say the fear, but the awareness that we don't want to have regret that we didn't create as much potential as possible. We have to learn to use that as the fuel to build the business. And sometimes when we start these businesses, we're kind of somewhere in the middle. We're in this start and moving into this place of acceptance. And while, yes, we're in a place of acceptance spiritually, when it comes to our business and using a business to create impact, we can't have complacence in that area. We don't want to burn out. and we don't want to get caught up in the stress and the strategy. We want to do it from our being, but that is part of the journey we get to navigate. Whereas he's built the business, and so now he can kind of relax into this next phase of his life, whatever it is, this new chapter for himself. So I did want to add that in. If you're somebody who's not you're not making multiple nine figures yet. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave a comment, ask your questions, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when the next episodes come out.